Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and being a producer of Wrestle Massacre as well as Inside Movies Galore, I am David Strege, and welcome to Delusions of Grandeur. Enjoy the reviews. I certainly did.
Okay, Dave, that's it. Screw you and your college flunkies. I've had enough of this from you and from everyone else. I know what you guys are trying to do. Break me down, drive me out of the force. Well, it's going to take a hell of a lot more than a lame prank like this to get Curtis Mooney to throw in his badge, so fuck you. Over.
Did you miss me? I guess not.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Delusions of Grandeur. I'm your host, David Strege, and here I have another review for you, this time of a movie that, thanks to Drunken Master Studios, and I'm giving you a shout-out, Mo, I've had this film in my collection for the last couple of months, and I'm going to give another shout-out to Grindhouse Mike, which he knows who he is, for getting me a copy of this film. I paid a relatively decent price for it. I think I paid like $35, $40 for it, and that's actually pretty good considering the fact that you know that this film goes for like $80 to $100 easily online, especially this 2-disc version of Darkness, which is put out by Leif, Jonker, and it was filmed in 1993. But from what I understand, it was actually filmed in 1989, but then it was was delayed in production, and then it went into post-production in 1991. And it was put out by Barrel Entertainment on this 2-disc set. Now, it's got the flippers, which is awesome, not stacked, and it's got a cool documentary on it, kind of where the cast returns, and it's got a flippy double-sided cover for it, so that's kind of cool. But it's your basic kind of Metal Kids meets the Vampire Apocalypse kind of a film, and we get a interesting cast here. At first, we have a character by the name of John, who's played by Jake Euchre, and he comes running into this convenience shop, says, "He's coming! He's coming!" And this is how it basically turns out. He basically runs in there, and then pulls this cop's gun and shoots himself up, and then he rises and starts to bite like many of the people. And the survivor of this this group is Toby, played by Gary Miller, and apparently I mean, I love this very beginning scene. It's kind of like trauma-esque ish, and you get to see a little bit of bloodshed here, uh, and you get an introduction to the lead vampire-ish uh, Liven or Livin, played by Randall Avix, and he's this long-haired, blondish-looking dude in like the long coat or whatnot, black clothes, you name it. He's kind of going around and turning these people into this almost ghoulish like creatures, because it kind of has kind of more of a zombie feel than it does a vampire flick. But um, uh, as we find out, these creatures of the night um, ultimately can get injured during the day. Now, there is a whole scene where Toby, played by Gary Miller, goes back to his what looks like a trailer park home, grabs his mother and sister, who look like they're beyond hope, and they start out on a journey to the hospital, evidently, where they end up turning, and it's kind of an interesting scene where she's like, "Son, come to me," kind of a thing, and he just didn't know any better. You know, once they're dead, they're dead. Once they're undead, they're undead. You know. And then there's another group of kids who are evidently on their way back from a metal concert, and this group is Greg, Kelly, Jody, Diane, Glenn, Steve, uh, among those. So there's a girl in pink that one of the characters, I believe his name is Greg, ends up with, and also Toby arrives on the scene, and he helps, I believe, Kelly. I believe that was her name, or was it Diane? It's hard to understand which was which. I think Diane was the character that eventually got up out of the car while they Toby and Greg went to investigate a mob of or what they thought they saw on the road, and um, she was killed. And there's a moment here where another kid, I believe his name is Glenn, or Steve, could be Glenn or Steve, and he shows up in a truck, and he runs over this dude, and then he runs right back over him, and it's like his body goes to pieces. But ultimately, they are trying to hunt down their friends to get the fuck out of there, and they end up running into to their friend Jody, who's been turned, and and the thing is, when these creatures turn, there was one thing that I noticed about the voices, is they kind of sounded quite like the Borg voices on Star Trek Next Generation, where you can almost see them saying, "My name is Locutus of Borg. Resistance is futile," that kind of thing. So ultimately, um, there is a repetition of days. It's like every so often it goes into like 2 days later or 3 days later before sunrise, because there is a kind of a journey that these characters are going on, and sometimes there's a lapse of 3 days. So there is a lapse of time period, and ultimately there is a haunting scene where I feel like I should mention this. The girl in pink who has been turned. She's actually calling for Greg, to help her. And um, I believe Livin is like not too far from her, and she's just standing there calling to him. And you know, it's kind of depressing at that moment because you can see the humanity that is within her, and well, basically, it's like these last three characters ultimately have to outrun these ghoulish creatures of the night, and they happen to know that they are susceptible to sunlight. So when that sunlight scene happens, which is basically the climactic ending of the film, they go through a transformation of melting of bodies, and there's these pus balls, and you can see that many of them are getting down to the flesh and the bone, and even the last little bits of flesh are moving on the face. And it's just, and then there's a lot of blood splatter. There's a moment where Toby is in this house, and he's surrounded by these zombies, and he ends up chainsawing the hand of this one zombie, and then he takes a motherfucking shotgun and blows the fucking smithereens out of the fucking shit. And it's fucking glorious. I mean, when I first got into independent films and watching them, I mean, I wasn't entirely into splatter as much as I am now. And now that I can literally say that I enjoy seeing people blown to smithereens. I enjoy seeing people killed, and I don't. I was. I've been ultimately trying to find out the reason why I enjoy the splatter films that I do, and it's just, especially when it's so well done. The animation and the animatronics of the I mean, you can literally see the bodies are melting. And then, of course, when all these skeletons of these bodies explode in simultaneous, it's kind of like fireworks. And it was kind of a masterpiece of gore effects in that very end. And I love that entire ending. It's just an amazing scene to see, and how grotesque it really was for its time period. I mean, I've seen some gore films since then, and it's not that this turned my belly at all. It more entertained me in the fact that it was so real. And I mean, there was even a moment where, you know, there was a guy that was like literally in half, and you could see his guts entirely melting from the inside out. You know, it was intense there for a moment. So I was really entertained with this film. I enjoyed knowing that on this vampire version that I have, the two main makeup artists, the main makeup artist behind the Night Flyer, was very much backing this film. I believe his name, let me get it here, was Jeff Goodwin. And the other guy that was an assistant makeup artist for he was in the makeup artist behind The Conjuring and Super 8 and the film Virus and Hunger Games. So to have this guy, a guy who was the key makeup artist for The Conjuring, and an additional makeup artist for Piranha 3D, some of the films that we have seen, and Asylum, and A Walk to Remember. He was behind the makeup. He was a makeup assistant for that film. He was the key makeup artist and a second unit uncredited in The Patriot, um, which involved Mel Gibson. So some of these people that were involved in this film was something else. I mean, back in, I believe this edition came out in 2005, and I believe that's why some of these names were attached. And there's another one here that was thanked for some reason. I assume that maybe they this two-disc thing was kickstarted for some reason, but Mr. Lobo is a name that was in the remake of Plan 9 in 2015. He played Criswell in Johnson's film. So I was entertained with learning all the different people that decided to help this film see more light. So it was an enjoyable film, very much low budgeted. I would love to see if someone could go back and maybe 2K this bastard on a Blu-ray or something like that. Just to see if there is some interest out there to buying, maybe putting out 50 copies of a Blu-ray out there. That would be awesome. Because maybe there could be some technology that would be able to maybe lighten some of the areas that are a little fuzzy, or taking the transfer and seeing what could be done about making some of the darker areas light again and bringing some color to it. So in any case, thank you for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed my description of this film. Like and subscribe to my page if you have not. The company that this guy Jonker did this under. I just wanted to mention that company. The company that he put it out under, and this was a little film from Augusta, Kansas. It was filmed in Augusta and Wichita, Kansas, in those various areas. And my cousins lived in Denver for many years. It's 13th Dream Entertainment, and so that I just wanted to make it obvious what the name of this his production company was. So in any case, hopefully you enjoyed my description of this film. Like and subscribe to my page if you have not. Definitely check the film out. It is out of print. It wasn't easy to attain a copy of it to begin with, so bear that in mind. But I love this film. This is one of my favorite splatter films now. So I don't know where that puts it in the light of independent films per se, but it has become a favorite of mine thanks to Mo showing some attention to it on our Inside Movies Galore podcast. So definitely check that out as a companion piece to this review. And let me know down in the comments whether you've seen this film and whether you would love to see some care taken to restoring this film for a Blu-ray release or something like that. So in any case, like, share, and subscribe. And thank you so much. Enjoy.
You were good, kid, real good. But as long as I'm around, you'll always be second best, see?